Welcome to the Nitty Gritty of Growth podcast, where we dive deep into what it takes to scale your business from one to many. I am your host, Nadine McCabe, founder of Strategy to Grow and creator of the Appear to Grow method. At Strategy to Grow, we empower entrepreneurs to streamline operations, systemize processes, and unlock new levels of sales and profits. Every episode, we bring you inspiring guests, leaders who faced challenges, learned hard lessons, and come out on top. We're here to spark ideas, offer actionable tips, and change the way you think about growth. Ready to level up your mindset, build your dream business, and make scaling easy? Let's turn those solo ventures into thriving, dynamic enterprises. The path to growth starts here. For more information, visit our website www.strategytogrow.co.uk. Welcome to episode 1 of the Nitty Gritty of Growth podcast. In this episode, you will get to know me, your host, Nadine McCabe, and understand why I'm delivering this podcast to you, why I want to share with you hints, tips, and insights from fabulous CEOs who have founded incredible businesses, why I am so passionate about helping other businesses to succeed and to scale up, and share with you a bit of insight into the journey that I have had in terms of my career, the skills that I've developed along the way, and the understanding that I've developed along the way in terms of business and scaling up a business. So I will share with you my insights and my knowledge and my journey so far. So let's get into it. So let's start way back at the beginning, and you might think, bloody hell, why do I want to hear about your childhood? What has that got to do with growing a business? Well, it matters. Your upbringing and your childhood and what happened in your childhood does matter, and for one reason and one reason only, and that is your belief system. What I have learned through some training that I did on a therapy called rapid transformational therapy, which is where you look into your belief system, you look into what limiting beliefs you've got and what's really holding you back. And I trained in this therapy and I found it fascinating, absolutely blew my mind what an impact your belief system had and what an impact things that happened to you when you were 3 years old or 4 years old really had on your life as an adult. And it does have a huge impact. So in terms of for myself, my childhood was very happy, very loving. I always felt loved and cared for, and I was always made to feel like I was good enough. There was nothing negative from that aspect, but we did struggle for money growing up. My dad was the sole income earner into our family. He didn't have a fantastic income coming in. It was a very mediocre income coming in. He worked really hard. When we were very small, my mum didn't work because she needed to care for us and her parents as well, because she had very sick parents who needed her care as well. So she played the role of the carer within our family for many years. And as we grew up and we went to school full time, she then started to work and earn an income herself, getting a couple of part-time jobs, things that fit around the family really and suited the family life. But it did mean that there was some hardship and some struggles financially for us growing up. Now, outwardly, my parents did everything that they could to make sure that that didn't impact us. So whenever we wanted anything, we would always get what we wanted. We weren't greedy children anyway. We were learnt to respect money and that things had a cost and a value. So we never particularly asked for anything outlandish or outrageous, and we were never that kind of child. But both me and my brother, we were always dressed very smartly. We had we always had lovely shoes on that fit really well. We always had lovely clothes. We always had the best that my parents could possibly afford. And we enjoyed recreational activities as well. So I absolutely loved to dance. My brother did taekwondo and canoeing. And both of those things are quite costly to families. You'll know if you've got kids that are doing 1,000,001 things. We've actually got 4 kids and they cost us an absolute bomb on different things they want to do. They want to do everything and you can't actually fit it into all the nights of the week and the weekend as well. But we had a couple of activities that we really enjoyed. Dancing was one for me, a big one. And I learned a lot from my dancing, and I'll go into that in a minute. But basically, in terms of the hardships that we suffered, it gave me a negative emotional attachment to money, because my parents would always say money doesn't grow on trees. If somebody went past who'd got a smart car, my parents were always very, oh, look at them, flashing their cash, showing them money around. And there was always that kind of negative attitude towards anybody who was successful. There was an element of jealousy, but just disgust, I suppose, at somebody who would flash their cash or would be able to afford things. There was always that negativity surrounding someone who was doing well for themselves. And that really sat with me. It's really something that shaped a belief system about money and my relationship with money growing up. And it's something that I figured out later on, much later on in life, and that I've had to work on in order to be successful in business. So understanding your limiting beliefs, understanding your belief system and the things that have occurred in your childhood and how they're impacting you now as a business owner is really, really important. So the other thing that I would say in my childhood that had an impact on me as a person and how I approach my business is my dancing. So as I mentioned, I was very much interested in dance as a young girl. I was a little prima ballerina. I absolutely loved it. And one thing that gave me was, well, there was 2 things really that gave me. One is confidence. So I can actually stand up on a stage and speak in front of thousands of people and feel very confident doing so and not feel fazed by it at all. Just feel like I own that space and I'm able to do that quite happily. The other thing that it gave me was a really strong work ethic. It gave me discipline, and it's something that I do believe you need as a business owner. And again, I'll talk about those a little bit later on in the podcast. There are some certain core skills and core things that as a CEO or a business owner or a founder, you really need to work on in terms of yourself. It's not all about working on the business and the things to do with the business. Some of your success is working on yourself. As you know, you may have heard the saying that it's 80% mindset and 20% action, and it is so true. It is very much the case. So you do have to do a lot of work on yourself. So yeah, the dancing gave me a very strong work ethic and very strong discipline. And like I say, we'll discuss that a little bit later on. The other thing that really surprised me in terms of my childhood and a belief system that I acquired really was your approach to work. So my parents obviously worked really hard to get all their income in, and I was brought up with this belief system that you go to school, you work really hard at school, which I did. I was a bit of a swot, and I got really good grades at school. I did really well. So you work really hard at school, then you leave school and you get a job and you try and get the best job that you possibly can that's earning the most money and to pay for all the things that everybody wants, and so that everybody else can turn their nose up and say, look at them flashing your cash once you've got your big flashy car and your big flashy house. And that was the belief system that I had. And being an entrepreneur was never really discussed growing up. It wasn't something that we explored as children. Being an entrepreneur wasn't really something that we discussed growing up. It wasn't really something that we explored as children. It just wasn't really something that was mentioned in the household. And it's strange to me that that was the case, because my grandparents were entrepreneurs while my grandma was. So my grandma, ever since I was a little girl, from my dad's side, she always had her own business. She had a little shop that sold wool, and she did that all of her life. She owned her own shop. She was a businesswoman. She was a business owner. She was doing that the whole time that I knew her in her working life, until she eventually retired and sold her business. So yeah, it was strange. When I look back now, I find it strange that being an entrepreneur and owning your own business was not something in an avenue that we ever explored as kids, and we ever discussed, and were ever encouraged to do. We were discouraged. And to be, in all fairness, I think most business owners will probably have the same story, in that the moment you mention you want to start a business, everybody tries to talk you out of it. What you doing? No, you need security. You need to just go and get a job. Everybody has a very similar experience in that. But when I look back at my childhood now, I have to ask myself why, because my grandma was doing it. Why wouldn't they encourage it? So yeah, that was another thing that surprised me in my childhood. Anyway, once I did get my qualifications, as I said, I did really well. I did study really hard at school, and I did quite well in my exams. I went on to get an apprenticeship in accountancy, and I studied to be a chartered accountant. And I did that through a number of years. I gained some certifications in accountancy, and I really enjoyed the methodical approach to looking at things. I would take somebody's big box of receipts and turn it into a set of accounts at the end of the year. And I quite liked that method, and being methodical in my approach, and really deeply analysing every tiny little minute little detail. And I learned a lot from that experience, in that the devil is in the detail. You have got to look at the details. The details matter. And especially in finance, you have to really pay attention to those little details. And that was a big learning element for me that I've had to take forward in my business. So I ended my accountancy apprenticeship a little bit early, as I fell pregnant with my first child. I was 20 years old when I had him, and I took a bit of a career break to take care of my son for the first year, because I couldn't bear the thought of leaving him alone for those first few months. And then by the time he was about 10 months old, I was desperate for some adult interaction once again, and I went back to work. Now, I didn't go back to work in an accountancy setting. I decided to change paths a little bit. Let's try something new. I went back into a job just doing administration for a security firm who installed CCTV, burglar alarms, fire alarms. Now, I wasn't doing that job for very long. I was only doing it for maybe 6 months. And there was a reason for that. One of the managers actually left, and there was an opening come up for one of the line managers in charge of all the engineers. And the department manager asked me to apply for it. Now, bearing in mind, I was only 21 years old. I didn't have any engineering background, but he'd seen something in me in those 6 months, and he'd noticed the mindset that I had, the problem solving and analytical mindset that I had, probably that I'd gained from my accountancy background, in all honesty. But he'd noticed something in me, and he noticed a leader in me, and he asked me to apply for it, which I was surprised by. I was really proud that he'd asked me. And I thought, you know what, why not? I didn't think that I would get it, because I had to go through a 3-stage interview, and the final stage I had to do a presentation to the International Board of Directors. So this was an international company. This wasn't a small company. This was a big firm. And I had to give a presentation to the International Board of Directors to explain to them why I was suitable for the job, what I wanted to do, what I would do if I got the job, and put together a presentation for them. And I was sat there in the waiting room waiting to go into this interview, and I was sat there with all these older men. They were all men in their 40s who'd all gone through the engineering route. They'd all fitted CCTV systems, burglar alarms, fire alarms, and they'd done that their whole lives. They were electricians. They'd had that hands-on engineering experience, and they knew how to do the actual doing, how to do the job of that the people that I was going to be managing could do. And it was quite daunting. But I was sat there in that room and I thought, I'm not going to let it faze me. They've got something different to offer than what I have, but I still have something to offer. And I decided in that moment, sat in that waiting room, that I would offer what I had to offer. And what they had to offer was irrelevant. So when I stepped into that room, that's exactly the way I approached it. And I went in and I showed my presentation, and I was very confident, 21-year-old young girl, young woman. And I explained to them what I would do. And I also challenged their objections straight away. And I basically said to the International Board of Directors that I know that I don't have an engineering background. I know that I don't know how to fit a burglar alarm or a CCTV system. But I don't need to know how to do that because the engineers do that. That's their job. My job isn't to fit the CCTV alarms or the burglar alarms. My job was to manage them and manage them well, and to make sure that the work that they did produced a profit, and that they worked effectively, efficiently, and as a team, and they were happy doing that. And as I explained that to them, you could see them at the cogs turning, actually thinking, yeah, actually, she's right. And lo and behold, I did get the job. So I became the first ever female manager and the first ever non-engineering background manager to get a role like that in this big international firm. And I was only 21. So that was the start of my career path into management and business management. And it was the start of a great career, in all honesty. I've absolutely loved my career. So what lessons did I learn from that first managerial role? I learned that you have an incredible power within you. So if you believe you can, you will. You have to have that belief system in you that you deserve this, that you deserve to be where you are. And if you can believe that wholeheartedly, it shows to everybody else, and everybody else believes it too. So you have to start with yourself. Your own belief system it all starts with you. The other thing that I learned is that you really need to gain an understanding of all the things that it doesn't matter that you don't know. So you have to understand what your role is within that business. What is the purpose of your role? What are you there to do? Are you really there to fit the CCTV systems, or are you there to lead that team and show them a process that enables them to work efficiently, effectively, and protects the profits of the company and increases the profits of the company? So having an understanding of what your role actually is, and understanding what it is you need to know and what it is you can let go of, what you don't need to know. Just let it go, as Elsa would say. Yes, I have small girls. Can you tell? The other thing was to stand your ground. I was in a very male-dominated environment, and to be honest, that's where I spent most of my career, in a male-dominated environment. And I felt so comfortable in a male-dominated environment as a manager, because I made sure that I owned my role, and I did go in there, as I say, making sure that they believed I deserved to be there because I believed it. And the other thing, the last but not least thing that I learned within this role, is that it's important for managers to lead, not to micromanage. So the beauty of being a manager in that role that had not come from a CCTV installation or burglar alarm installation background was that I didn't need to know how it was done, or I didn't need to show that I could do it. Yes, I needed to have an understanding of how it was done to a certain degree to enable them to do their jobs, but they could give me that information. They could give me all the information that I needed. My role was to show them a process and to lead them and to guide them a path and to be there for them and support them and help them work as a team and to protect the company's profits. I was a leader. I needed to be a leader, and I didn't need to be a manager or a micromanager. And I learned it early on, and it did help that I wasn't able to micromanage because I couldn't go in with my screwdriver and do what they were doing because I didn't need to. So yeah, managers need to be leaders rather than managers. And if you can get your managers out of that mindset of managing and micromanaging, I'd maybe even change the name of your managers from manager to leader, and it will help to get them out of that mindset a little bit. So where did I go from there? So I spent another 20 years or so in managerial roles, managing different teams of engineers, fabricators, electricians and mechanics. And I was responsible for, in each of these roles, running of whole manufacturing sites towards the end of that career. I was responsible for the people involved in the business. Every single person on that site, I was responsible for them in terms of their health and safety, in terms of their efficiency and productivity. I was responsible for gleaming that out of them and putting the systems and the processes in place that enabled them to be the best possible versions of themselves and to bring the best possible result for the business. I was responsible for the finances, the cash flow of the business, and knowing how to protect that cash flow and to really make the business profitable, to understand the costs of the business and how to lean out some of those costs and expenses and protect the profits. I was responsible for the health and safety of every single person on that site. I was responsible for all the legislative responsibilities of the sites. I was responsible for the sales and marketing systems, processes, procedures, whether they were effective, not effective, whether we needed to change what we were doing, do something different. It was all coming under me in terms of my responsibilities as that operations manager, general manager. Each and every company that I was a manager of, I had masses of responsibilities. And these jobs that I went on to have after leaving my first managerial role were incredible learning experiences for me. I absolutely loved each and every one of them, and I learned so much over the last 20 years doing them. I learned strategies for people development and enhancing people and understanding how to lead people and what people want from their job and how to give them what they need to thrive in an organization, how larger organizations really operate. And one of the other things that I learned is, as an operations manager or somebody that's responsible for the whole operations of the business, if it is your job to oversee everything and you're responsible for everyone and everything in that business, then you cannot take your eye off the ball. You take your eye off the ball and disaster can happen. So if you are responsible for the whole thing, you've got a company that's operating and you've got small little cogs, and one cog turns another cog. And those cogs are your people or their departments. They could be anything. But each cog turns and it has an impact on all the other cogs. And if there's a fire going off at one end and one cog's not working and it's seized up and you need to focus on it, you go and focus all your energy and your attention over by that cog. Disaster can happen at another cog. If you take your eye off the ball, you've got to be watching each and every system, each and every cog turning, and make sure you oversee everything. You have got managers and teams of people that can deal with that fire when you are running a bigger operation like this. So you need to make sure that your managers, your team leaders are there dealing with the fire. You can offer insight and point them in the right direction, but you need to oversee everything, and you cannot take your eye off the ball for 1 second. If you take the eye off the ball for, say, the finances, you could take a very profitable business and all of a sudden within 6 months it'll be insolvent if you just make that one mistake and turn a blind eye to something that you shouldn't have turned a blind eye to. The other thing that I learned was, as I mentioned, that one cog has an impact on the other. And that's really an important thing to understand when you're looking at a bigger operation, that everything has a knock-on effect in the different systems and the way that everything operates within your whole organization. So you need to make sure that there's no bottlenecks, everything's flowing really smoothly, and you've really got to have a good overview of everything to make sure that everything is running nice and smooth. You've not got one cog that's trying to turn faster than the other. Everything's got to be all going at the same pace, all at the same time. So during my final role as a high-end manager, I was general manager running a manufacturing plant in Sheffield, and I was made redundant at 25 weeks pregnant, which came as a bit of a shock because we'd been streamlining the workforce because we wanted to cut down on the workforce, and I kind of did myself out of a job, I suppose, in that the owners of the business decided that they could take on the managing of the team themselves now that we'd cut down our staff and we'd streamlined everything. So I was made redundant at 25 weeks pregnant, and that left me in a bit of a pickle because I knew I'd gone from high-end managerial roles, and no employer within those roles that I'd had the past 20 years of experience in was gonna employ someone who was 25 weeks pregnant. If I walked into a job interview with that baby bump, they wouldn't have even listened to the first 10 minutes of me explaining to them why they needed me. They'd have just sent me out the door straight away, I think. So I knew I needed to do something else. So I took an extended maternity leave. And during that extended maternity leave, I decided to start my own business. The business that I started was a management consultancy and virtual assistant business. I wanted to provide my experience as a manager and support other businesses that needed that bit of a helping hand with managing their teams, their onboarding, whatever it may be. I wanted to offer them a consultancy service where I could come in as a support manager for them. And I actually went back to work for my old employer who had made me redundant because they realised actually they did need me. So they became a customer within my first startup business, which was great. And I also offered admin services and providing support through administrative support to smaller businesses who needed that little bit of extra help with their admin. Now, the business was an absolute success. It was really running so well. It was very, very profitable. It got to a point where I was thinking, right, I'm ready to scale this operation now. I started looking into what it would take to franchise the business and looking at systemizing everything ready to scale. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, it was very fortunate. I fell pregnant again. So this was my fourth child. It was ultimately going to be my last child, but I fell pregnant and COVID hit as well. So COVID had a massive impact on my business. The customers that I were working for no longer needed me. I was about to go on maternity leave. So again, I took a bit of a career break. I allowed that company just to wind down, and I took a bit of a break from it to bring my daughter up and to raise my daughter and to spend some time with my daughter while she was very, very young. And again, whilst I was spending my time being a mother, I was also spending some time working on myself. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as somebody who is very much in touch with myself and wanting to learn more about myself, personal development was massive for me, and I was always working on myself, always working on personal development. The moment I started my business, my personal development path really took off and exploded. And I think a lot of business owners can probably attest to this as well. It kind of comes hand in hand. When you're running a business, you need to work on yourself as well as the business. So I was working on myself, and I had a need to work on myself, not just because of the business, but because I was going through a lot in terms of my own personal life, my own personal experiences. I was dealing with a lot. I had lost my son's dad through suicide. I have had 3 relationships in my life. One being my first love, my eldest son's dad. I had 8 to 10 years with him until we departed, went our separate ways, and we remained friends thereafter and supported each other in whatever routes our lives went on thereafter, but we raised our child together. And I had my first husband. Now that relationship was very, very much a roller coaster. It was an abusive relationship, unfortunately. It was something that had a massive negative impact on me in terms of my self-esteem, who I was, just the way that I viewed the world, everything, because of the abuse that I suffered during that relationship. Fortunately, my abuser is now serving time for the abuse that was inflicted on me. But it's something that I've had to deal with. And during this time when I was establishing my businesses and I was working on my businesses, I was going through dealing with the loss of my first partner through suicide, and also dealing with the investigation and the court case, the trial that was going ahead for my second partner, my first husband. But I was having to deal with the trial and the investigation, and I was having to deal with my healing journey with regards to the abuse that had been inflicted on me during that relationship. And both of those things, in all honesty, I can say this, that I wouldn't change what's happened in my life. I wouldn't change them, because they have given me this knowledge and understanding that in order to succeed and in order to be happy and fulfilled and to deal with what life throws at you, because life can throw some curveballs your way. It constantly does. It constantly surprises you. You need to have a semblance of resilience. You need to be mentally resilient. And you certainly do need to be very much mentally resilient when you are a business owner, because those stresses that you will suffer or endure, I wouldn't say suffer, that you will endure as a founder of a business will be quite intense. So you need to have some form of resilience established in order to get through those moments and really find the best path through those moments. So I'm glad I've got those experiences under my belt, because I did develop mental resilience. I did develop emotional resilience. I developed a greater understanding of my own needs. So I'm very much glad that I've had the experiences that I've had in my life for that reason. And as I mentioned previously, there are certain things that I do think as a business owner you need to have, core skills more than anything that you need to have, and things that you need to be aware of that really massively matter in terms of your business growth, that matter as a part of you as the founder. So a lot of things that we work on with our business owners, that as our clients, as our founders, are strategies and systems that's developed within their business. But one element of our Appear to Grow method is the prepare session, the prepare element of the process. And that prepare element is there purely to go through working on your mindset. So as a CEO, you have to constantly work on your mindset. It is constant work that you have to do. And that is something that I have learned. You do need to focus on your mindset. You need to work on your mindset every single day in order to overcome those battles and those challenges that your business is going to face. And resilience, you need to do things that are going to strengthen your resilience and that are going to give you that resilience to the things that life throws at you and that business throws at you and the problems. You need to be able to think your way out of those problems very effectively without letting your emotions take too deep a hold on you. And passion is huge. it's the one thing that is going to get you through when you are having to really dig deep and find that resilience and you're doing that work on that mindset. Passion is the one thing that pulls you through. So you started your business for a reason. You started it to create a better life for your family, to have that freedom. Is that the passion that's driving you forward? Is it the passion for the problem that you're solving for your customer that really lights your fire? You've got to understand what that fire is and why that fire's there, and you've got to hold on to it, because the moment that passion starts to be put out and that fire in your belly starts to diminish in any way, shape or form, the moment you hit a hurdle or an obstacle or a challenge within your business, you're going to find it much harder to push through. And there are times in running your own business that you have to dig deep and you have to look for that passion again. So I had my fourth and final child. She ventured into this world kicking and screaming, and I had some time to myself, and I decided during my maternity leave to develop another business. Because I was on this personal development journey, I had stumbled across rapid transformational therapy, and I decided I wanted to learn how to do it. I wanted to understand more about myself, more about the people around me. I wanted to work on myself, as well as helping people who were struggling with their mental health. And I didn't want to lose any more people through suicide. I'd lost my son's dad. By this point, my son had also lost his best friend 3 years after losing his dad. We'd lost my husband lost his best friend through suicide, all within the space of about a 5-year period. And it was something that was really hitting home to me, that people needed help to work on themselves. So I decided to train in rapid transformational therapy, and I decided to set up a business where I could bring rapid transformational therapy to a greater number of people. And I set up an employee assistance program company that was designed to bring rapid transformational therapy to businesses, to allow their employees to work on their own mental health and really gain some really useful therapy that was going to have a huge impact on them. And I was really passionate about it, and I set everything up, and I spent a lot of money. I got startup loans. I spent a lot of money on crafting it and making it perfect and crafting the best website possible. And I wanted it to be as professional as possible moving forward, because I had big visions of it being this big company right from the get-go. So I hired an office, and I learned a lot from that business, and I made a lot of mistakes in that startup. So I made quite a lot of mistakes right from the get-go, right very, very early on. I let the expenses get away from me. We didn't particularly need the office, so I shouldn't have had that office right from the start. I took my eye off the cash flow. I was focusing on different areas and wasn't looking at the overall functioning of the business, which is something that I'd learned early on in my managerial experience, and I wasn't doing when I started that business. I wasn't perfecting the systems that I had within the business. I'd perfected the lead generation, but I'd not perfected the lead conversion. So we were getting the leads in, but the conversions were difficult. And as the business was taking off and we were getting clients in, and it was getting harder, and the money that we'd had was getting less and less and less. And it was getting to a point where it was getting critical that my family couldn't allow this to happen anymore. We couldn't support the business financially anymore. We were really in a bad way with the finances. And as that was happening, I lost the passion that I had for the business, and it was really starting to weigh heavy. So as I mentioned before, if you've not got that passion, if that passion is lost, when you do hit those challenges, you find it very difficult to push through. And I was at that point. So I took a step back. I didn't end the business because we'd got clients on board that we needed to serve. I didn't end the business. I let it continue on running in the background, and I went back into an employed role for a while. And again, I learned a lot from the employed role that I took on, but it's not where I wanted to be. I knew I've always wanted to be a business owner. So I then decided to launch Strategy to Grow. I wanted to share what I've learned, not just in the 20 years of experience and the successful businesses that I've had. I wanted to share my experience in that one failed one as well, because I learned so much from what I shouldn't have done. I learned more from that business than I did from the one that was successful, in all honesty. So I have got experience in startups. I've got experience in what not to do. I've got experience in what to do. And I've got experience in big business and big operations and how I can see the methodology. And I've crafted a methodology on how to get you from A to B. So I wanted to share that methodology. And these are systems that have been crafted by proven techniques and proven methods. And I have studied hard on different methods from different gurus, people such as Michael E. Gerber, Vern Harnish, Timothy Ferriss. I have learned from all these different gurus, and I've molded them all into one strategy, blended with all of the knowledge and the experience that I've gained, and crafted the Appear to Grow method. And this method is something that I desperately want to share with other businesses. We are on a path to revolutionize the way that businesses scale. And I want to share as much insight as I can with you through this podcast. Now, I hope you're walking away with actionable insights and fresh inspiration to fuel your business journey. Remember, growth isn't just about scaling your operations, it's about leveling up your mindset and embracing the challenges that come with it. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, share, and leave a review. For more tips, strategies, and exclusive content, head over to our website or find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel for more in-depth content. Until next time, keep pushing forward and making growth easy.